Could Australia use another boxy, very interesting Jeep-like 4x4 capable SUV on our shores, my friends? And I think personally, yes, we could use one. So today I'd like to introduce you to this amazing model that is right now entering Russian markets. And once again, I'm just hopeful that maybe they come to our shores. This vehicle is called BAW 212. I am absolutely in awe of this vehicle because it reminds me of my grandfather's Russian UAZ that he used to have, the model 469. I really like it. I think it's rudimentary, I think it's boxy, but a lot of us don't pursue extra luxury. A lot of us want this rudimentary boxiness as long as it comes at a slightly lower price range. So let's thank once again my favorite automotive magazine of my childhood called Rulem, which is translated as behind the wheel, as in behind the steering wheel. And I'm once again very happy to showcase their channel. Very quickly humor me with paying attention to our sponsors. This video is sponsored by our old friends AutoCast, creators of a whole lineup of products that are enabling wireless connectivity to your infotainment systems in your car, as long as those infotainment systems have wired Android Auto or wired Apple Carplay respectively. Connect your phone via Bluetooth and then without connecting any wires have access to Google Maps, podcasts, phone calls, whatever else, you name it. We're users of their devices. We're not just resellers of something like that. And AutoCast, by the way, of course, sponsors the video by providing the devices, but they are not paying me to tell you only the good news. So I assure you, I do believe in the brand, and I think you should take a look at the description for a variety of discount codes. So thank you, AutoCast, for sponsoring this video. BAW 212 is a very interesting vehicle. This BAW 212 is clearly related to the classic Russian UAZ 469. Similarities are too many to deny, I suppose, and some kind of auto brand IP exchange must have happened back in 1965 when the predecessor of this BAW 212, Beijing 212, became available in China. Russian UAZ became available for sale in 1972, 4 years before I was born, in case anyone is interested and pays attention to participate in our upcoming Christmas trivia, which I may or may not do. Random facts are not random, my friends. We will reward those of you who are watching my videos throughout the year and actually paying attention. This BAW 212 is considered to be only the second generation of Beijing 212, and it came out in 2024. So it took the brand almost 60 years to relaunch its obviously successful rugged off-roader. This BAW 212 clearly borrowed a lot of elements from that ancient Russian UAZ and from the classic Land Rover Defender. There are even some bits that resemble Mercedes Geländewagen models, while remaining a thing of its own and looking quite good if you are into classic, rugged, I would say almost military, boxy, off-roader looks. And I know a lot of people are. If you're not, well mate, go watch my video about the new MG QS, for example, or JQ J8. It's more of your thing. The rest of you, keep watching. Original and unusual elements include this little stub on the tailgate with icons that suggest that one could remove it and attach either a long flag shaft that some install on such vehicles so that when they are going over dunes or over hills, depending on the off-roading landscape, of course, the vehicle could be seen by others, or a tactical radio antenna if that's more of your use case. LED headlights and 360-degree cameras all over the place. It's a classic off-roader on a frame, duh, I don't need to say it, but yes, it is. And suspension isn't independent. This vehicle is on 2 whole axle bars, no leaf springs, fortunately, but spring coils, which are more appropriate for 2025. Massive towing hook is available here in the front, very easily accessible, a lot better than on some other heavy off-roaders. Length of this vehicle is 4 meters and 70 centimeters, but front bumper is a bit long, too long, so it kind of eats up into this length. It's kind of not useful length, so to speak. Gaps between the frontal fenders and the bumper are quite obvious and excessively large. Yes, even larger than those on Tank 300. So you will get all dirty, all the mud, or everything is going to get right into there if you drive this vehicle into any kind of muddy off-road or even just bad weather in the city. I reckon it's going to mess you up a little bit. Standard wheels and tires are 17-inch. The full specification is 265/70 R17. So highly unlikely that they could be damaged or by hit through by anything like a normal road bump. A lot of brand imprint is all over the vehicle. This 212, you will notice it everywhere, on the side doors, on the side step, and wait until you see the steering wheel, man. Too much, if you ask me, but it's not like it's a massive issue or a showstopper. Thresholds are present here, obviously, but for some reason they are rather narrow, actually. So Kirill, our host here, actually says, listen, I don't even know why they bothered adding them if they didn't make them comfortable enough. No modern railings, roof railings, just classic little water drainage system along the perimeter of the roof, which looks almost cute, I'm gonna say, in 2025, don't you think? Tailgate has plastic cover, and it's not very practical. None of it is very practical. It's kind of cheap. There is a pocket here which can be kind of removed, but again, it doesn't turn into a foldable table or anything like that. There is nothing useful underneath. It's all very, very rudimentary, to be honest. The volume of the boot is kind of sad as well, not larger than, I don't know, we could see on Tank 500 or something else that comes to mind in those kind of vehicles. It's really an afterthought rather than something that you would rely on. Small organizer under the boot floor for a few tools there and this and that. And the main disappointment is that all the boot lining, kind of the sides of the boot and tailgate, are trimmed with this basic black plastic, which is all scratched up even after less than half a year of them using this vehicle. Bonnet opens comfortably. You pull the lever twice in the cabin and then it opens by itself, propelled by the gas cylinder powered pistons. So your hands will remain relatively clean, at least until you will try and get into the engine bay, because that's where the conveniences and, honestly, the rest of the vehicle's geometry is not making access easy for you. On the sides, we have these kind of really thick fenders, and the side panels are way too wide to reach the engine bay comfortably by standing on the ground, isn't it? And in the front, Kirill once again shows us how massively protruding this bumper is, so you kind of have to bend over it and reach out well over it if you wanted to access whatever you want. If you ever saw some of those old military, like war movies, where you see maybe a military driver sitting on top of the engine bay, they kind of just climbing over it and then doing whatever they need to do there inside of the engine bay. It's kind of, yeah, it's very, I would almost say nostalgic. In a strange way, it's nostalgic. It's a classic 2-liter 4-cylinder turbo petrol engine that pumps out 238 horsepower and 410 Newton meters of torque. It's paired with an 8-speed automatic transmission. Classic automatic transmission here, no DCT, thank God. Apparently some of the elements of this engine, such as the head of the cylinder block, is either supplied by or derived from Mitsubishi models. Inside, when we look at this, everything looks nice and rugged, if this is your thing, obviously. For me, as a former Jeep Wrangler owner, it does look like I would like it. Personally, there is a vertical windscreen, slightly uncomfortable side mirrors are being mentioned here. They're nicely tall, so like height-wise, it's cool, you can see a lot, but the width is not massive. So considering that there is no blind spot monitoring in this vehicle, or at least that's how I understood it, it's kind of slightly uncomfortable because optically you might not see all that much on the side, unfortunately. Take a look at the number of physical buttons. It's flat out a champion vehicle for the number of physical buttons available in 2025. It's crazy to see this number. Come on. Infotainment system also looks rather largish and kind of acceptably large and modern enough, but apparently translated very awkwardly into Russian. I suspect it might be a little better for English as a kind of more common translation destination, I suppose, for other origins of the vehicles, but who knows? It might not be either. Surprisingly, there is massage of the driver's seat available as an option. There is a built-in dash camera, believe it or not. It obviously remains to be seen how good or bad it is. It can't be super great. I can imagine it's 1080p, but that's purely speculative, honestly. There are some custom installed apps. Straight away they see in their Russian, like the car obviously is supplied for the Russian market. I wonder if they would do the same if they're supplying the car to South Africa, Australia, wherever else. It's unique to see that driving and transmission modes are not controlled by a single control, such as like rotary shifters, for example, that we see these days on most off-road capable SUVs that we've reviewed in the past. Here, each mode has its own physical key. Like crazy, how luxurious is that? Don't you think? Like extra button to enable a specific mode. That's cool. I really love it. Steering wheel is only tilt adjustable, but not telescopically in and out, kind of fly out adjustable. It's a bit of a shame, honestly, given otherwise this whole positioning of the driver looks fairly predetermined and rigid. So you would have to bend forward in order to reach the steering wheel if for some reason, otherwise you can't do it comfortably. It looks comfortable. The quality of the seat cushion looks comfortable. He's not talking much about it, but it seems all right. But what he mentions is that there is no side support. So you're not your sides are not supported as you're sitting in that seat. So you definitely are not going to be racing in this car. Plenty of space inside, a lot of kind of headroom available even in the rear seats. But getting into the second row of seats as a passenger is not comfortable because, as you can see, the entry is a little lower than the roof level. So basically, unless you're really short, you will have to be very careful and duck not to hit the top of that door frame with your head. Yeah. Once you're inside, there is plenty of space. Like I said, there is like almost a whole palm in front of your knees and above your head available. So it's not claustrophobic by the look of it, from what I can tell. Very basic finishes there at the back. We can see that cheaper plastic, black plastic everywhere. It's sort of somewhat scuffed and scratched already a little bit. A couple of USB ports there. Nothing to write home about. Just this, yeah, it's pretty normal, kind of what you would expect from a budget version of an SUV these days, I suppose. Back cushions of the passenger seats can be actually tilt adjusted to make yourself more comfortable in a longer drive, which is great. But Kirill says it's kind of done slightly uncomfortably. You would need to find and pull a lever around your left or presumably right shoulder, depending which side of the seat you're sitting on. And then you can lean back by quite a fair margin. As he starts driving, he says that this vehicle weighs a little over 2 tons, but he for some reason expected it to be more performant on the road. I didn't, but he says it disappointed him because acceleration is very slow, both from like standing still and taking off and when you're trying to overtake, when you're already driving. Yeah. Sport mode kind of makes those delays between you pressing the accelerator and actually seeing the car respond to you. Those delays are shorter, but you can still feel them before the car speeds up proportionately to what you would expect it to do, right? Apparently also slightly jerky shifting of the gears can be felt inside of the automatic transmission, and switching the driving modes is also very laggy. So when you press the button and you see something noticeable happen that makes the driving mode clearly shifting, clearly adjusting something there, some ratios in the differentials, it takes a few seconds. Maneuverability is actually surprisingly good, he says, for this shape of the vehicle and not independent suspension. It's a part-time 4x4. So the suspension itself, since we mentioned it, can survive basically any bumps that you throw at it. It's like hard steel and anciently proven construction. I suppose it's built to last, so you don't need to be gentle with it, which is great. You wouldn't be buying it for some kind of soft rides, would you? Like, I mean, you'd have to be insane to buy it for that kind of stuff. Rear diff lock is coming standard even in base versions of this BAW 212, and top versions will come with an optional front diff lock as well. These locks, funnily enough, automatically disable. They turn off when you reach the speed of 30 kilometers an hour, which is important to keep in mind, as it's not uncommon to reach those speeds rather easily when you are off-roading, even when you're off-road. While we saw plenty of fake off-roaders on DCT transmissions that get overheated from barely any effort and push from the driver, here Kirill says that everything again is so classic, made of steel, ancient proven auto technologies here. So this surely might not be the hardest off-road test in front of us right now, of course, but it is definitely more than we've seen for those DCT transmissions where they got overheated from like barely nothing, barely anything. And here everything is robust, nothing really caused any issues. Stated clearance of the vehicle is 235 millimeters, but without any added aftermarket extra steel engine protection. They sometimes add this sheet of steel underneath to protect the engine additionally before you do heavy off-roading. They didn't do it, so perhaps that would decrease the clearance, obviously. Very good geometry though for off-roading, because you're basically driving a cube, and a comfortable drive through flooded areas is stated at the depth of 66 centimeters, without a snorkel attached, of course. Kirill says that sound insulation is actually surprisingly okay at relatively high, up to relatively high speeds, where, you know, of course, that's when the wind noise comes in, when you start speeding up, like, you know, to a certain like speed above 100 kilometers an hour or so. That's when you will start hearing a little bit more, because there is just no avoiding that, unfortunately. He basically says that there is also adaptive cruise control, which is somewhat unexpected to see on a rugged kind of classic vehicle like BAW 212, but again, it's not tuned particularly well. It's based on optical sensors such as the front camera. I understand that that's where it reads the road in front of you, and it kind of acts inaccurately. Like when people pull in front of you in the traffic, the vehicle, if it's in adaptive cruise control mode, it might brake unexpectedly, fairly jerkily, fairly strongly. So it's not comfortable and a bit nervous, he said. Overall, they had no major issues with testing the vehicle, other than once they got this unexplainable icon check engine that lit up once. That's probably after their off-roading adventures. But then he said, we just restarted the engine, waited a tiny bit, it went away by itself and never came back. So it did spoil, it did leave a little bit of that taste in the mouth. You're like, well, come on, man, like what is happening? Because you can't explain it. But he said nothing horrible really happened, so he was generally quite happy. Now he mentions at the end competitors on the Russian market to this particular vehicle. He mentions bike BJ40, which we have translated and compared to Tank 300 a few months ago. You can find that video on my channel if you're really interested. It's an interesting vehicle. Yep, it's kind of cool. So he says they are obviously somewhat related, you know, both from, you know, the Beijing brand and stuff like that. It's a very interesting comparison. Tank 300 is mentioned obviously as well as a more expensive on their market at least, but also a much more pleasant drive, a lot more modern, a lot more pleasant compared to this, a lot more rudimentary, but also rather unique and attractive vehicle in its own price category. The way Kirill here very quickly categorizes these vehicles for us, in his obviously subjective opinion, is this. Third place for the lowest comfort, but also lowest price, goes to this BAW 212. Second place he kind of gives by default to bike BJ40. And the first place is still very firmly being held by a more expensive, a lot more capable, a lot more family friendly and city friendly Tank 300. So now is your turn, my friends, to let me know, do you agree? Did you like this? Is there a place on our Australian or wherever you are auto market for a cheaper and more rudimentary, yes, but still very capable and unique looking off-roader such as BAW 212? I would say absolutely. Some of us have the same off-roading needs or towing needs, let's say, but less of a desire for luxury, or we might even prefer such a like rugged, really no excuses military classic look to something that is a lot more rounded, soft, you know, such as even Tank 300. I never thought I'm gonna call Tank 300 soft, but compared to this, Tank 300 is soft, my friends, don't you think? Tell me what you think. Leave a comment, give this video a like, please, especially if you're still watching so late into the video. There are only a handful of you, like kind of judging by the statistics that I'm looking at on YouTube backend, so I really appreciate you. Subscribe for more translated reviews of the other vehicles that Australian and many other markets could benefit from, in my humble opinion. That's why I bother bringing them to you, and I hope that you enjoy it. So do let me know, and thank you for tuning in this week. Goodbye for now.